Greetings to you and welcome to this episode of G.R.A.C.E Podcast. I'm Timothy Muse. I'll be your host as we spend this time together today. It's a joy to be with you. I want to thank you for tuning in. I want to thank you for making this podcast a part of your journey. And as always, yes, I want to thank you for being on this journey, for walking through this time, for having the courage to step out and be better, to look at those places in your life that need attention and advancement. You know, it doesn't mean that you're bad. It doesn't mean that you're living a terrible life. We all have places in our life that we ignore, we let go. Maybe they need to go on the back burner because something else needs to be taken care of. But the fact that you're here, the fact that you're stepping in, leaning into this and asking those questions is so vital and so important. It's important for you as you grow as a person, but it's important for all of us because we are part of the human community. We are all interconnected. And because we are all interconnected, because we all have this interdependency, when one person gets better, we all get better. We affect the human community. We affect the human consciousness, the human thinking, the human interaction. So good for you for being in this place, for having the courage to do this. If this podcast is helpful, please share it out there. Put it out there in your social media feeds. I post on LinkedIn, X, Instagram, and Facebook. If you follow me or any of the podcasts or any of the life coaching feeds, then you're going to see these episodes. Share them. Tag me in it. I'd love to see where you are. If you're on one of the listening platforms, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or Amazon Music, then follow us, give us a rating and review. It tells the platform people are listening, and you'll get a notification when new episodes comes out. And if you want to reach out to me directly, GRACELifeCoaching.com is the website. GRACELifeCoaching.com. I would love to hear from you. So we have been walking through the power of rest, the importance of rest. Over the past episodes, we've explored something our culture often overlooks. You know, rest is not a luxury, it's essential. We've talked about why rest isn't laziness, what happens in our brains and our bodies when we rest, the many different kinds of rest we need, and the hidden beliefs that make slowing down feel so difficult. Today, we're going to look at something that is just as important. And we may not see the effect of it. We're going to look at something that is vital. Rest isn't just about you, okay? Hear me when I say that. Rest isn't just about you. It's about everyone who shares life with you. The version of you that shows up for your family, the version of you that your spouse experiences, the version of you that your children remember, the version of you your coworkers interact with, the version of you your friends depend on. All of those people experience your energy. When you're rested, you bring one version of yourself into the room. When you're exhausted, you bring another. The people you love don't simply receive your time, they receive your emotional availability as well. And those are not the same things. Those are not the same things. We can be physically present, but emotionally somewhere else. Time and emotional availability are two different things. And a lot of that depends on rest. So we're going to dig into that. All right. So imagine yourself, you had one of those days at work. Work's exhausting. The emails never stop. The phone rings continually. Deadlines pile up. Traffic is frustrating. By the time you finally walk through the front door, your tank is empty. Then someone asks you, how was your day? And instead of answering with patience, you snap. Not because you wanted to, but because you have nothing left. Most of us don't intentionally bring stress home. But stress has a way of traveling with us. It shows up in our tone of voice. It shows up in our facial expressions. It shows up in our patience. It shows up in our listening. It shows up in our willingness to engage. Okay? Here's something worth remembering. The people closest to us often receive what's left of our energy, not the best of it. So very true. They get the rest, not the best. We give our energy out to all those other things, and then when we come home, our tank is empty, and the people that are closest to us get the rest. Not because we love them less, it's because we spend ourselves everywhere else. Our world dictates that we spend our energy in our work, in our productivity. Our world dictates that we spend our time and our energy in the hustle, in the busyness, in the overscheduling. So the people closest to us, they don't get the best of us, they get the rest of us. They get whatever's left in the tank, and usually that tank is empty. And if we're not getting good rest, then that tank never gets filled up. It gets filled up enough to get through the day, but when we come home, those relationships and those people closest to us, they get that empty tank and everything that's in it. The emotional, the physical, the resiliency, all of that is gone when the tank is empty. All right. So we it's not just about when we rest, but it's about the energy that we bring to those closest to us. That's why rest is so important when it comes to relationships and community. When we're not rested, we don't bring our best selves. We don't bring our best selves. And those closest to us, they struggle the most with the lack of energy that we bring. Because we might be physically present, but emotionally, we're just not there. We just can't give the people in our lives what they need, our attention, our love, our place. And one of the greatest gifts we can give to another person is our attention. We've talked about attention. Attention is a valued commodity. Social media drives on our attention. Our phones drive on our attention. And with everything around us, our energy is pulled in so many different directions because of so many different things wanting our attention that by the time we get to those closest to us, by the time we get to those that matter the most to us, we don't have our attention left, okay? We don't have it. So one of the greatest things we can give to the people that are closest to us is our attention. Not divided attention, not distracted attention, undivided attention. That takes energy. That energy comes from rest. I mean, think about how often you've been in the same room with someone while both of you are looking at your phones, all right? While both of you are distracted looking at something else. Technically, you're together, right? You're sitting in the same room, but emotionally, you're somewhere else because you're exhausted. You're numbing. You're looking for a way to overcome. Emotionally, you're somewhere else. Many families spend hours together without ever truly connecting. You know? We call it quality time, but it really isn't quality time. It's just time in the same proximity. It's just shared space. All right? I mean, think about it. I'm sure you've all been to restaurants at some point in time, and you sit down and there's a family over on the other table, and all of them are on their phones, eating distractedly. Okay? Well, when we don't rest, we don't have the energy to give that. It takes a lot of energy to give our undivided attention to someone. All right. But it doesn't take a whole lot of energy to simply share space. Rest helps us become present. It helps us become present not only in our own being, but also for others. When our minds aren't racing, when we're not constantly checking notifications, when we're not thinking about tomorrow's problems, we actually notice people. We hear them. We remember what they say. We laugh more easily. We respond instead of react. Okay? Presence isn't about the amount of time. It's about the quality of our attention. And that quality of attention only comes when we have energy left in the tank to give it. So that's where rest comes in. When we are resting, we are filling our tank up. Our battery isn't just charging a little bit, it's charging all the way so that we have the energy not only to give to our work and our responsibilities, but we have significant amount left to give those who are important to us. Rest is the tool that we use to fill up our energy bank so that we can have quality time and we can give quality attention. That's so important when we're dealing with relationships, particularly relationships that are close to us, people who are really, really connected to us. Because what can happen is those relationships can really suffer when we're running on an empty tank, when we don't have that rest. Have you ever noticed that you're a different person when you're tired? Of course, when your energy is there, small inconveniences suddenly become enormous. You become impatient. You interrupt more often when you're trying to have a conversation with someone. You assume the worst because that's where your brain goes. Your brain's going to assume the worst because it doesn't have any energy. You take things personally. You become less curious and more defensive. It's not because you're a bad person. It's not because you want to be a bad person. It's not because you don't care about the person next to you. It's because you're exhausted. It's because your tank is empty. It's because exhaustion narrows your emotional capacity. It narrows your emotional capacity to ingest and deal with all that's going on. It becomes pinpoint. That's what exhaustion does for us. Think about it. How many videos do we see of people at the coffee shop just completely losing it because their latte came out wrong, throwing it back at the barista, or screaming or shouting? That's exhaustion. Those are people that are exhausted by the weight of the world, exhausted by the stress, and not resting. Their tank is empty. So when something small and inconvenient happens, it turns into an enormous explosion. All right? That's what happens. Think of emotional energy like the battery of your phone. When it's fully charged, everything runs smoothly. As the battery drains, performance changes. Well, you're the same way. Eventually, every simple task becomes difficult, right? We're much the same. When our emotional battery is depleted, compassion becomes harder. Patience becomes shorter. Listening becomes more difficult. That's what happens. If you think about it, even in your own relationships, look at what happens in the relationship when you're tired versus when you're rested. When you're rested, things go smoothly, even those difficult conversations. But when you're not rested, when you're tired, small things become big things. All right? But there's good news. All right? Rest helps recharge the emotional battery. Rest is one of the primary things that we use to recharge our emotional battery. It doesn't solve every problem. It doesn't. But it helps us respond with our best selves instead of our most depleted selves. And when we can bring our best selves into relationships, we can bring our best selves into people, when we can bring our best selves into circumstances and situations, even if they're hard, resolution comes easier because our best self is being present. Okay? That's what happens. And we're energy beings. And I don't want to sound woohoo here. I'm not, that's not the direction I'm going. But we are energy beings. We are not just physical bodies. We are energy beings. We bring energy, aura, life presence to the room. Have you ever walked into a room when someone is obviously stressed? You can feel it immediately. You can feel it. You can see it on the look on their face. You can feel the energy radiating from them, particularly if they're close to you. If you know their patterns and you know their behaviors, if they're stressed, you can feel it. Nobody has to say a word. Energy is visible and it's contagious. It's contagious. All right. Calm is contagious too. So when you walk into a room and someone is stressed, you can feel it. And ultimately, immediately, your stress level goes up because you're matching that energy. We're energy beings. We match each other's energy. So all of a sudden, your energy level is going up. But calm is also contagious. Think about the people who make you feel peaceful simply by being around them. They're not always the loudest. They're not always the funniest. They're just simply grounded. They're grounded in their energy. They're grounded in their presence. They're present and unhurried. They're compassionate and steady. They create emotional safety. What if you became that person? What if you wanted to be that person? No, rest is there. Not perfect, not endlessly cheerful, simply calm enough that other people can feel safe around you. We can't be that person when we're not rested and not grounded. Grounded comes from rest. Those 7 points of rest we talked about before, not just good sleep, but all of those other places of rest. That's how we become grounded in ourselves. Because to be a calm enough person for other people to feel safe around, that kind of presence begins with how well you care for yourself. You cannot consistently give peace if you're never allowed yourself to experience it. Peace comes with rest. We have to have that rest in order to recharge our battery. That's how it works. That's just how it works. One of the greatest complaints that people have in relationships is simple. I don't feel heard. Listening sounds easy, right? But genuine listening requires energy. When you're mentally exhausted, your brain naturally begins looking for shortcuts. That's how our brains work. That's why habits are so powerful. And when we're exhausted, we lean into habits far more than we lean into creativity. And when we're dealing with someone, when we're in an intimate relationship or a strong relationship and we're exhausted, that other person isn't going to feel heard. We're not listening. We're listening in prepared to respond. Instead of asking questions, we're solving problems. It's like, okay, you're having a bad day. Well, maybe you should do this, rather than like, okay, tell me what's going on. Instead of staying curious, you become distracted. Rest creates space for listening. Not just hearing words, but understanding people. Sometimes the greatest act of love isn't offering advice. It's offering attention. People don't always need answers. Often they simply need someone who is fully present. And we are fully present when we're rested, when we have enough battery energy left to be fully present, particularly after we've put it out there for the rest of the day. Most of the time, our battery is most charged first thing in the morning. We wake up and we get ready for the day. Is that the time when we have difficult conversations? No, it's not. Usually it's at the end of the day, after the kids go to bed or after dinner. All right. Well, by then, if we're not getting good rest, our batteries are pretty empty. And it's hard to enter into difficult conversations. It's hard to enter into and make space for people. But rest is the way to overcome that. When we're diligent about rest, when we're diligent about getting the good rest that we need, all of the rest that we need, then our battery starts to get full and we're able to be present rather than just seeing the people closest to us as bylines or, they're always going to be there. And I think that's one of the greatest things that people believe. I'm exhausted, I'm tired, but my spouse will always be there. And then they wake up one day and the spouse is like, I'm not going to be here anymore. I'm tired. I can't just keep being the less than. The family can't keep being the less than. Energy is important and energy gets depleted. So rest is the power to bring that energy depletion back. All right. So let's be honest. Many of us give our best energy to our jobs. We do. We prepare, we focus, we solve problems, we smile, we encourage, because a lot of us define our identity with our work. All right, we define our identity with our work. We kind of talked about that before. Our identity and our work are enmeshed. Then we come home with whatever energy remains. Whatever energy remains, and usually it's not a whole lot. We'd never snap at our coworker, would never snap at our boss, but we'll snap at our kids. We'll snap at our spouse, or we'll just shut down and just be quiet and disappear. All right? Because our energy levels are just gone. What if we reversed that? Imagine recognizing that your family deserves the same intentionality you give to your career. That doesn't mean quitting your job. It means creating transitions. It means allowing one thing to end before another thing begins. It means taking time to refill your battery before engaging into your family structure. How we transition our energy is important. Maybe before walking in the house at the end of the day, sit quietly in your car for 3 minutes. Take a couple of short breaths. Leave work at work. Remind yourself, the people I'm about to see deserve my attention. Small rituals can create big differences. They can create those moments of rest. You don't need to be perfect. You simply need to become intentional about transitioning from work to home. Okay? You need to be intentional about transitioning from work to home. Before we wrap up today, let's talk about one relationship we often neglect, the relationship we have with ourselves. Many people spend years criticizing themselves. I should be doing more. I'm falling behind. I'm not enough. I'm failing. The intentional internal conversation follows us everywhere, and it can be exhausting. Rest gives us an opportunity to replace criticism with compassion. It gives us an opportunity to step back and have compassion for ourselves. To ask, what do I actually need right now? Instead of, why aren't you doing more? That's a powerful question. Do you ask that question to yourself? What do you actually need right now? I've got a to-do list of things that need to be done. All right. And that to-do list is new every day. These are the things that need to be done. What do I actually need right now? What would give me rest and presence right now? Instead of asking, why aren't you doing more? Healthy relationships with others often begin with a healthier relationship with ourselves. If you are constantly extending grace to everyone, but never to yourself, eventually you will have little grace left to give. Okay? So I'd like to invite you to reflect on a couple of questions. Just think about them. Let them, kind of fill around in your brain. Who actually receives the best version of yourself? Who actually receives the best version of yourself? Who usually receives the leftovers? When you're exhausted, how does your personality change? Who in your life makes you feel completely present? How can you become the kind of presence for someone else? And finally, if someone described your emotional availability over the past month, what would they say? Now, again, this isn't about guilt. I don't want you to feel guilty. I want you to look and say, oh my God, the podcaster just really ripped me open. No, this is about awareness, because awareness opens doors to change. All right. This is about awareness. This is about asking those deep questions, not because we want to beat ourselves, but because we want to have compassion with ourselves and start asking those deeper questions. This is about awareness. Okay. Those questions are important. Let them reside inside of you. Let them ruminate in you, resonate in you for a little bit. All right. because it's so important. Who we are and what we bring is so important. Listen, people may not remember every word you said. They may not remember every task you completed, but they'll remember how they felt when they were with you. Okay? They'll remember how they felt when they were with you. Maybe you didn't get everything right. Maybe you didn't speak everything, but they'll remember how they felt when they were with you. Did they feel rushed or judged or ignored? Or did they feel seen, heard, safe, and loved? Rest helps us become that kind of person, not because rest magically fixes relationships, but because it restores the energy required to love people well. And that's what we want to do. Look, at the end of the day, we are career-driven people, but our careers are going to move on. It's the people closest to us. Those are the ones that remain, and those are the ones that are most important. So give them the good energy. Get that good energy by getting good rest. That's what I got for you for today, my friends. I hope it's helpful. I really do. If it is, please share it out there. Put it out there on your social media feeds. If you're on one of the listening platforms, then follow us, give us a rating and review. And if you want to reach out to me directly, GRACELifeCoaching.com is the website. I would love to hear from you. At Grace Life Coaching, we want you to be the best you.